Over. Theoretically, we should be live on the Twitch here ever so shortly.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Well, good morning. Hello, Mary. How are
Good
you?
morning. Good. How are you,
I'm
Nate?
fantastic.
Really,
Thanks for joining me. I know you and I are actually sort of neighbors. You're in
that's
the
right.
great city of Chicago. I'm about six
Exactly.
hours north and west of you in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
So we're sort of rivals, I guess, that way.
We are
At least in some
we are
sports.
right. Exactly. We're all kind of right by the lake,
It's true.
Lake Michigan. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
We love
we're
the
kind of
lakes here in this part of the world.
exactly. It's actually beautiful.
It
So,
really
yeah.
is. I don't think people understand just how nice the Midwest is, for the exception of, as we were talking about earlier, January.
Exactly. The
I
wind. And
yeah,
yeah.
oof,
It's,
no, thank you.
kind of
I don't like the
something.
snow.
Exactly. Me neither. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, Mary, why don't you introduce yourself to our I don't know if anybody's watching live, but somebody will watch this at some point on the
Mhm.
YouTube. And so why don't you
Sure.
say who you are and what you do and how it is
Sure.
that you got talked into joining me here on a random Monday.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you. First of all, really appreciate the invitation. So yeah, my name is Mary Grygleski. I'm a developer advocate at IBM for the global Java advocacy team. So I do Java, open source, cloud, and DevOps, and now kind of getting more into DevOps and stuff like that. Then by night, I'm a community organizer. I'm also president of the Chicago Java Users Group, where I have been helping since like 2015, 2016. So I'm kind of an active tech community organizer. I used to call myself like meetup junkies, So I used to like go to all these meetups. And it's actually after my daughter graduated from college and she has her own life, then I was like, okay, let me get back busy, right, doing computers. I mean, let me kind of refocus. And because I used to be also like part-time soccer mom too, by the way. So yeah. So anyway, so it's a great thing for me to get back. So that's what where I am. So like now as advocate, I travel so much. Well,
Right,
pre-COVID days,
right.
non. So I'm actually all used to traveling because of all those soccer mom days where I was driving. But these days, of course, if I go to Europe, I'll be flying, across the Atlantic. So it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I'm used to like travel and all these things. So yeah, so that's kind of in a nutshell who I am. I've been a developer before becoming an advocate 2.5 years ago. So I was kind of developer for quite some time too, in fact. So yeah, so it's exciting. I've always been very interested in doing software. I find it's just so creative, the whole process. I mean, you can take it to the very creative kind of aspect, although in a business sense, it's less emphasis on so because they have to deliver things to the business. But
Right.
in its core, it's such an interesting activity, so creative. So anyway, so that's how I got there. And this time I'm so honored because of my colleague Pratik, who has also had a conversation with you, and he told me, he said it's kind of fun, let's go and talk to Nate. So thank you.
Well,
So
thank you for joining us. I really do appreciate it. I hope it's fun. I mean, that's the whole goal of this. As I've said before, part of what makes this enjoyable for me is I don't get to hang out with my friends. And normally, as we were saying, well, we were kind of getting started here today, I'm sure I would have bumped into you at least 4 or 5 times by now. And I just don't get that. So for me, this is trying to rekindle that. So I do appreciate you spending time with me here. And, it's nice to have that outlet. But
yes, yeah.
so I'm like you. I miss the travel, although I do enjoy the fact that I have a nice bed here at home and I have a nice family that I don't get to see as often. And so it is kind of nice from that perspective. Although I think I've kind of hit the point where maybe we are around each other too much because it has been almost 10 months of virtual lockdown
Yes.
and it's hard when you
Um,
don't get those experiences. But is there any place that you're really excited to get back to sometime next year when this lifts and our passports have value again?
oh yes, I mean for sure. I mean, I'd say I every place I've been to, I've always like uncovered something about that place that's special that I'm learning, or people, and just a different way of life. And so I'd say I'm open to anything, but I'd say somehow though I really like Eastern Europe, something about
Oh,
it,
sure.
and it's just maybe the food or something. And of course, my last name, right, Grygleski, is very Eastern European. So I, even though, well, okay, my ex-husband side is kind of no, kind of they are no well they were born here in the US, but still because of their food, some of their custom culture, it's still kind of related to the Eastern European
Sure.
side. So I kind of feel connected because also of the food too, and I really like that. I think Eastern Europe, it's definitely where I'd like to also go. And I'm kind of thinking too, I would like to go to Africa as well.
Oh,
I spoke at the what is it called? I call Java in Johannesburg. So I was almost going to go, but because of COVID, couldn't go. But I love to go into Africa and see what it's like. Go to Australia, which I've never been to yet, and so some of the APAC, right,
sure.
Pacific, like India. I mean, India is amazing too. I mean, in Bangalore, I was just fascinated. The food, the people, the many things, and just outside of tech, it's just so much to it, to people's everyday life. And you talk with them, you talk not just tech, right?
Right.
You start to talk with people, understand, where they're coming from. They all have aspirations to become better, and so I think that's what really strikes me is that I feel like what I'm doing is an outreach, even though it's technology, but through technology, you're really bringing out people, bring people together, essentially. That's what I kind of really looking forward to. So I'm just looking forward to the coming back together travel and everything. So yeah. Yeah.
I miss seeing the folks, and it's hard to do these presentations to a blank screen without having the audience there to kind of reflect that energy back. It's a challenge. There's no getting around it, and
Yeah.
I think I'm very privileged that we get to keep doing this. It hasn't really completely changed our lifestyle other than not getting on
True.
airplanes. But I miss
That's
the folks. I miss these really cool little restaurants that you discover. My team's superpower is we find the best coffee in whatever city we're in, and I miss
yeah.
those experiences. But
Yeah.
we'll get
Totally.
back on that horse. It's just a matter of time.
Sure.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So how is it to help organize a user group? I think a lot of folks don't appreciate all the work and effort that goes into that. They just sort of show up at the meeting and they're like, oh, okay, fine, it was a talk. Maybe they gave away a book. Can you talk a bit about how you got involved and what it's like to be on the other side of a user group?
Sure. Yeah. So as such, right, I first started attending meetups, and meetup group seems to become more popular in like 2010, in that last decade. So it was also right timing for me. So I started going, and because nice thing, you get free food, you get people, and you talk. It's just such a nice atmosphere, right?
Right.
People don't go in and kind of unlike sometimes hate to say, but at a work situation, I think maybe there's money involvement, right?
Mm,
People less tend to be less kind of cooperative somehow. But in a user group, it's different. It's all volunteer, it's all free, and people come together and talk and everything. So that's how I kind of became more like on the user side. And
sure.
then because became such a junkie for so long, meetup group, 3 years, 2 3 years, and then it was Freddie Gimme at the Chicago Java Users Group and Bob Paulin. They were like, "Oh, why don't you help?" And I said, "Well, can I help?" They said, "Oh, of course." So it's like probably 2015, 16. They said, "Oh, come on board." So really, they put me onto the board, and that's how I started 2016 as a meeting director. But you're right too. Once I'm on there, then it's kind of changed because now it's different. It's not like me going in and enjoying all the benefits. Then I
Right.
realized, wow, so much work, right? And you have to like organize, and you want to make sure that say with a technical user group, Java users group. So we tend to be doing like
Mm,
meetups of presentations, and so that involves finding your speakers and of course your topics and what kind of topics. And with Java, it can be like an infinite number of topics. So
mm,
many things, old things, new things, emerging things, and all these things, you cannot possibly satisfy
no.
everybody's needs. And that's what it's difficult too. And so I have to be cognizant of the fact that I'm going to be, okay, maybe this month I'm talking about Spring. Then a bunch of people don't care. They won't come.
Right.
Yeah, then so sometimes like, Kubernetes. And well, actually, interestingly, with Kubernetes, I'm finding it's still kind of new. And for
Right.
Java developers, they don't seem to care as much. I think they do, but it's
Mm,
maybe not as imminent. It's more like something to a lot of companies are still something in the future. So maybe there are people coming on mostly curiosity, and
sure.
some are already maybe deep into it, but that's the minority. So anyway, I have to kind of like sense to see what kind of topics would kind of get their attention, that not just attention, but something that would add value to what they're doing every day. Is it going to benefit what they're doing? They're learning something new. So I'm always trying to think of it that way. And actually, most recently too, even the New York Java SIG group, right? The folks, all of them, they were saying, oh, you should actually have some, the Oracle, the Java program people come in. So that's what I'm also thinking too. It is true. I tend to focus too much on the technical and forget that we are people, and we need to have some kind of the people aspect, the
Right.
ecosystem, the community. So I'm trying to think of it as kind of a general, or it covers a lot more topic areas, or as much as possible that are covering popular topics that would make people want to come and participate. And another thing we're trying to do too is to have audience engagement. So we have lightning talks.
Oh, sure.
So it's a tradition. Twice a year in December too, we also have lightning talks. So I try to make it more interesting, and also depends on number of people helping too. And people all goes, they're busy with their lives and with COVID. But actually, in my goal too, I'm hoping to have a kids event, for example, and have their parents have their kids and things like that. We used to have that when Freddie was in kind of here, and with Bob when we had like Minecraft for the kids and parents to do. So yeah, so this kind of can be infinite number of ways of making it interesting. That can be hackathons and all these things. I think I'm more ambitious than I actually can do it, but and I need people, but people are not always with a volunteer group is not always easy. So it kind of I kind of play it by ear, so kind of
Sure.
thing. So yeah,
Well, I think you get at one of the hardest parts about crafting a conference lineup. I've been on both sides of the call for paper process, and what's so hard when you're trying to put together an event is to have enough stuff that's sort of new and interesting that kind of brings people in, but you also have to have the practical stuff that I can use Monday morning at the office, and it's hard sometimes to find that balance. But yeah, I
yes,
don't think people appreciate all it takes to make these user groups and these meetups happen. And, it isn't just,
right.
oh, I snap my fingers and somebody shows up. A little easier now, maybe that it's virtual. I've certainly found
Yeah,
it's easier for me to get to some of these things than before when I had to try
yeah,
to swizzle it into a schedule. It's a little simpler when it's just me hopping on a Zoom call. But,
yeah.
there's a lot that goes into these things. And I think people need
It
to
is.
appreciate that. But
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, totally. And I think that's how I'm finding too. Not to say people are not appreciative. I certainly have folks from my user group members that came up to me and said, "Oh, this is great. I enjoy it." These days too, I add in the virtual drinks component to it. So afterwards, we all go to go grab your
yep,
favorite drink and sit down and talk some more. I think people definitely enjoy the community aspect of it and coming together, just chat and or on anything kind of I think is important to kind of make people feel like they are connected essentially. So yeah, that part, yeah, that's what I'm trying to achieve too, is to
sure.
connect people. Yeah, so
And that's been one of the hardest parts about this pandemic is realizing that we don't have those outlets. As you and I've already touched on a couple times. I would have you and I would have gotten a cup of coffee at some point this year, and that's not going to happen. And so I think we don't always appreciate how much those little touch points matter and how much that is sort of soothing of the soul and whatnot. It is challenging when
yes,
we miss that. And I've
yeah,
been surprised at how enjoyable just hopping on a Zoom call can be. Like part of my team last week, we played. What is the game? It's like werewolf or vampire, except it's online. The kids are all doing it
oh,
together amongst us. Is that what it's called? I've got the game on my iPad, so I can't remember exactly. We played it as a team, and it was great.
oh,
We spent like an hour
cool,
or whatever it was. I'm like, I miss my team. I don't get to see you
yeah.
guys, but
I know, yeah, I know, yeah. It's kind of, I think it's funny too. I feel that maybe the positive thing, well, kind of, we have to look at the positive side with this pandemic is that we did not even realize how much it is important, how important it is to have people, the sense of community and
right.
kind of that thing. So now it kind of brought it to our attention. Okay, it is actually of utmost important to have this sense of community. It's not just about us, me, or something. It's really, a larger community. So, yeah,
I do think that's going to be one of the positives that comes out of this for many of us is sort of that reminder of how important community is and our friends and the people in our lives and just to not take that for
yeah,
granted. I think
yeah,
I've sort of maybe got a little jaded around that because we do get a chance to travel so much that when it's taken away, it's
yeah,
like, this is kind of strange. I don't even remember what it's like to get on an airplane anymore. Like
yeah.
what is that
I
all
know.
about?
Yeah,
So I think it's certainly made me more appreciative of those opportunities and I'm
Yes.
excited to get back at it at some point here in 2021. I mean, I presume, but
Yeah.
I don't know. So I always like to talk about food because this is right around
Oh,
lunchtime.
yeah. I
So
love it.
are there any like restaurants that you're dying to get back to? Hopefully they can survive this crazy time, and any
Oh,
place you're just
yeah.
really excited about.
Yeah, I think, well, restaurant, right? I'm less of a meat eater, as to
Okay.
put it that way, but I like really healthy food. But I think for me, I think I really myself, I really like Indian food. So I like the variety, of all the vegetables, the
Mm,
vegetarian. I think I would like to go for the Indian buffet. I know I normally, I shouldn't be eating so much, but the thing is, at Indian buffet, there's just so much stuff, and I just love it, the vegetarian. So yeah, so I would like that, but not to say that's the only thing I like, but I love a variety of different food. I mean, I do have to say too, I mean, I like in Chicago, right? There are a lot of Polish
hmm.
folks. Wow, their buffet too is amazing, right? Yeah, I know there are a lot of meat, but I kind
Yes.
of, okay, I go for other things too, dumplings or something lesser, kind of. Yeah, so I mean, like a good old fashioned like Polish buffet too is also something I'm craving for. It's just fun, and then you move on to the dessert table. That's amazing, right? Somehow I don't know. Wow, how creative! All the amount of the sweets and stuff. So that's something I think I would be kind of going for. And of course, even like I myself, I'm Chinese, right, of origin. I'm originally from Hong Kong. Then there's also dim sum. If you have heard of dim sum, they're
Mm-hmm.
like little dishes, kind of like tapas. And well,
Mm-hmm.
talking about tapas, I want to go too. So see, like I'm like all distracted, talking about food. I can name something. So yeah, tapas, dim sum, and Indian buffet, Polish buffet. Yeah, you name
Nice.
it. I want to. Yeah, yeah. I kind of really love it. Oh, makes me hungry.
I know, I know. It's bad of me even to bring it up because I haven't had lunch yet, so I shouldn't even do it. But I have to. I agree with you on that. We actually recently we ordered in some Indian food, and I was sort of expecting my son not to like it very much. I mean, my wife makes a couple dishes that he enjoys that are sort of that genre, but I didn't think he'd enjoy it, especially because I ordered some things that were vegetarian, and he
Uh-huh.
ate it down. He's like, "Hey, we do this again and like tomorrow?" I'm like, "No, not tomorrow, but yeah, we can order again." He's like, "Okay, good," because I really like that.
Yeah,
I'm like, "All
yeah,
right, the kid likes good food. The system works."
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's good times. It's good times. But do you
Mm.
have like a favorite comfort meal or something that sort of resonates for you that you kind of go back to, or maybe like something you make for your birthday, or
Oh,
what makes you think of home and hearth and all that kind of stuff?
homemade heart. Yeah, that I guess I have to admit that in that case, then I would go back to my traditional meal, right? That I had growing up, kind of like the simple, like a rice and vegetables and some kind of fish kind of steam thing.
Hmm.
Those are kind of, simple stuff, but they really evoke a lot of great memory, right? And growing up too, I have to say I was very fortunate. I mean, I think also it's common in Asia that it is affordable. You,
Oh,
you,
sure.
you hire a helper. So because both my parents worked, and so and we had this helper who became our family, part of the family. She was a single lady, and so she was the most amazing cook, and she would cook these traditional dishes that are just you can't find in the restaurant menu. And so I think I really miss her soups, her like special steamed fish and vegetables and some rice. Very simple, but it's kind of I think something I would say I would still go back kind of to my root, and those
Sure.
are kind of really like the comfort. But I'd say too, having grown up and having traveled and came to America and meeting people, different groups of people, I have expanded my menu. Like I said, I can be happy to just eating any other kind of food too. It's just I kind of adopted all these newer culture and
Sure.
all these things, and I'm finding it just every culture has such great stuff in it, and I feel like when I'm eating with them or something, you're like part of their culture. So I'm kind of like more like a worldwide person. I
Yep.
just travel anywhere and just become anywhere. But yeah, so I think yeah. I would think yeah I think overall I'm just a very thankful person. I try to always be thankful. So it's like everything too. I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, not to say I don't have an opinion, but it's just in general, I do appreciate a lot of things that I have is what it is. So yeah.
that's a great statement. I know I had Dahlia on last week, and we were talking about that, and she's sort of in this habit now of doing like a
Oh,
gratitude journal, I believe is the way she sort of phrased it. And I thought
yeah,
that's a good idea. We sometimes we get so wrapped up in I got to get this or I want that, and we forget about we got a lot of pretty cool stuff. We live a pretty good life,
yeah,
and I
yes,
certainly have tried to reflect upon that as we sit here in pandemic times to go, yeah, I'm a pretty lucky guy.
yeah,
I can't really
yeah,
complain in the grand scheme of things.
mm,
I've got a lot
mm,
of
mm,
zeroth world problems, is the way I think about
yeah,
it. But
yeah, yeah.
uh,
And since you, sorry,
I was going to say,
yeah,
I agree. I think one of the real benefits of our job is the fact that we do get to visit these places and see.
yeah,
You talked about going to South Africa. I got the privilege of going there a couple
yeah.
years ago and loved the food, loved the people. I mean, it was just a
Oh,
fantastic. Love Cape Town. I'd go back to Cape Town in a
oh,
heartbeat.
wow.
Yeah, but that's
I
the
saw.
kind of thing that a lot of people don't get to experience that. And so, speaking of being grateful, gratitude, that's certainly something I've tried to reflect upon too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And now that you kind of brought up the fact that yes, we need to be grateful in the pandemic situation, but when I think about it, still we are so to speak like blessed because
Yeah.
let's say if we even let's say if this condition happened 10 years ago,
Oh,
I don't
right.
think we would have such luxury as we have today. We Zoom is ready for all these things, and they're not just Zoom, right? There are other
Right.
platforms too that are enabling the online experience, and it's kind of pretty amazing. And so I think the time, it seems like it's not so bad if you think
Yeah.
about it because of all these technology that's enable us to be able to stay connected, even though it's not ideal, not real person, real time,
Right.
or it is real time, but not real in person. But still, overall, I feel that we're still very blessed. I mean, having all these technology and things that are ready, and it's not as bad as some maybe sometimes we tend to complain. But when you think deeply, it's actually not so bad. Like if let's say right the bubonic plague back then,
Right.
I thought about, oh my gosh, those times must be so hard. You did not have TV or
Hmm.
anything. You really were like literally locked down in your own place, and
Right.
you couldn't go out. You don't know what's going on. You don't even like get the newspaper maybe or something. But
Right.
so I think we're still in okay shape.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point. I mean, but for the internet and having every streaming service under the sun, we don't have it that bad.
yeah.
It does surprise me how frustrated some people can get. And I understand. I mean, if your
Yeah.
occupation is being directly impacted, I'm very
Oh, yeah.
understanding of that for sure. And
Yeah.
I think we're
That
very
part.
lucky that we can keep kind of doing our jobs from, here, my
Well,
den.
that
But again, it's my son was saying the other day, he's like, I don't understand why people aren't just laying on the couch watching TV. Like, this is a perfect opportunity to just binge watch your favorite show. And I'm like,
yeah.
yep,
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
Thank goodness for that. For a lot of us, not for everybody, obviously.
Yeah,
But
that's right. Yeah. Yeah, true.
so speaking of pandemic, how you doing? How you holding up? Do you have any habits that are helping you get through? Have you picked up bread making? Everybody's doing bread. I'm gonna
Oh,
try
that's
doing
great.
bread because I'm bored with winter
Yeah.
coming here.
Yeah. I think, well, for the pandemic, I think work-wise, I always have something going on with the online thing. I
Yeah,
haven't got time to kind of do these more hobbyish things. Although one thing I do have to say, but I did not actually used to have Amazon for delivery because I just used to like to just go to the store and get stuff,
sure.
or if I order only if I need to. But now with Amazon, I have to admit, right, it is so convenient. I started
Yeah,
doing my green screen stand, all I'm like, oh, not a bad idea. So then they actually gave you like a free Amazon Prime. So Prime, so then I thought, oh, let me see what's there. So it is true. I have to say, well, I kind of look, there are plenty of things to watch, right? And
sure.
so I do kind of like now too, is that on the weekend I may kind of pop up something I'd be watching that I find. But I tend to like documentary.
Oh,
Yeah, not to say I'm a nerd, but then it's just I'm interested, right? To find out, I was reading about the giants, and that's talking about which in the Midwest, in fact, they found a lot of mounds with all these giants as 12 feet tall people. I'm like, really? Wow. So anyway, so I kind of found out things like that. I'm learning, kind of just expanding my little, kind of knowledge base and find just so much stuff to know. So anyway, I guess I've been doing that a bit more now. So kind of watching Amazon Prime, looking for good shows. And so, yeah. So
have you found anything that you're really appreciative of? Any shows that you're really excited about?
You would say about, yeah, right now I think those are, like I said, the history, some of the, kind of world history. I really like it. Like some of these, it's interesting too when I watch something, right? I not just watch that because like with the giants, they may kind of point back to some of biblical times, right? There are also
Sure.
giants and things like that. So I seem to like always be attracted to how it works, in history, how humankind have reached today's, it's gone through all these kind of era of times. And so I like to kind of always be searching for something on history and kind of understand it. I mean, when I was little, right, or in school, I kind of like history, but not like crazy. But now, maybe as I'm getting older, it's like, I wonder why, I wonder this. And so it becomes more like history is a living
Sure.
thing. And so I think I'm finding myself kind of attracted to more of a historical documentary, things like that. And that's kind of area I'm kind of, yeah, kind of looking more into. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Well, and to your
yeah,
point, that's one of the things that's so amazing about the world we do inhabit, that you can find that, that's all
yeah,
there. And, you've got these
yeah,
amazing things that there wouldn't have been a market for before the streaming services all kind of came on the scene. So
yeah,
that's
that's
very
right.
cool. My kid's into history. That's one of his things. Although it's more like war history. He's a Civil War
Oh,
buff, which is
war.
weird.
Oh, that's right. War.
We're in the
Yeah.
Midwest. We didn't really deal with that directly, so to speak. I mean, we sent
Oh,
troops, and I know there's apparently we captured some Minnesota regiment captured like a Virginia flag or something like that, and
oh.
Virginia asked for it back, and the governor at the time basically said, "Well, if you want it back, come take it back."
Ah, okay.
So apparently, we're not giving it back.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
fascinating how that stuff works.
It really is. Yeah, exactly.
Have
Yeah.
you picked up any habits during quarantine that you hope last post quarantine?
Habits. Habits. I'm trying to think. Not, I wouldn't say habits. Maybe it becomes like so I'm used to it. I'm not even thinking about it.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. Yeah, not too, yeah, not too much. It seems like, well, I do have to admit, I mean, because, we are home all the time, even if we say we're on vacation or last week, Thanksgiving, I still be online.
Right.
So it's still kind of like the habit, get online, check my mail, check something. So check my Slack messages, my Discord or something. Yeah. So I think it's already been a habit.
Sure.
So I'm just continuing to do that. But other than that, I don't know. But and well, one thing I do have to say, I mean, I'm a church person too, so there are also church activities that we do online,
Mm,
for example. So yeah, so I'm continuing to do that. I
sure.
think, yeah, yeah. So I also do that, and yeah, that's interesting. You should ask about that. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's interesting. Now you ask about it. Yeah, it's a good question. What have I done differently? What have I? Yeah, I think it's just more so being at home.
Sure.
And these days I just wake up pretty much. Kind of brush up a little, I can be at work.
Right.
It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of crazy, but yeah, that's just how it works. But it is more convenient too in some ways, and no need to do these extra things to get ready to to go out or travel or something. No need to pack my bag and
Right.
stuff. So yeah, yeah, that part is true. I do enjoy the fact that there's no need to rush,
Yeah.
because somehow no matter what I do when I'm like normal times, I would always be in a hurry. Oh my gosh,
Sure.
I gotta catch this train, or I need to, kind of call my Uber so they can
Yep.
come on time and take me
Yep.
to the airport. Always in a hurry. So these days too, I do enjoy the fact that there's no need for me to be worrying and call my cab
Right.
and all these things. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
yeah,
think that
pretty
the
much. And
biggest
then
stress point for me on that is just trying to figure out what time zone the person who's requesting my
uh,
time is actually in.
sure,
And
sure.
somebody tweeted this, I don't remember who, but they said, make it, hey, conference organizers, make it really obvious what the time zone is, or else
Uh,
please tell me that your site automatically adjusts, because it's really a
oh
little bit
yeah.
of a panic when you're like, wait, was that 9 my time or 9 their time? And then you're trying to do the math in your head and you're like, oh, yeah, that could be a problem. So
Yeah.
that's the only sort of stress I see in this for us, is not having to, we
Oh
don't have to worry
yeah.
about missing a flight. I don't have to worry about oversleeping an alarm. I have to go, oh yeah, no, they wanted that in GMT, not in Central Time. Okay, I better figure out what that is. But
Yeah, yeah, that's a good, very good point. Yeah, in fact, when I now organize my meetup, I always list out, okay, it's Central Time, but I also always say GMT minus
Yep.
six.
Yep.
That's essential. Yeah, things like that. Yes, it is true. I am becoming more like cognizant of the fact that I'm serving, like people from all over the world can be in any time
Right.
zone. So
Right.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's somehow
mm,
easier when we're actually on an airplane getting there because then it's just you're in that time zone and it seems to, at least
yeah,
for me, mentally works a little better. But
yeah,
I don't miss spending hours on airplanes. I do miss being in these places, and I guess I'd
yes,
rather get on an airplane than, I did an event for APJ. I guess this was just before Thanksgiving. That was like a 1:30 a.m. deal for me, which I mean, the way I looked at it is I said, well, it's just a red eye flight. That's really the way I have to think about it. So the next
yeah,
day I'm going to feel like crap, and then I'll sleep extra the next day. It'll be fine. But it's
yeah,
again
yeah,
zeroth world problems to say the least.
yeah. That's right. Yeah,
So
exactly.
where do you go for fun for vacation? What's on your bucket list for 2021? I've already
Uh-huh.
started planning vacations.
Yeah,
That's one way I'm
2021.
getting through the
Yeah, yeah.
impending winter here. So do you have
Uh-huh.
any places you're dying to get to? Any vacation
Then,
spots?
uh-huh. I think for 2021, when we can travel again, I think I would definitely like to go to Europe somewhere. I think I want to go to Italy again. Yeah, I was there for a conference last year. I really like it. So, I mean, many places too, not
Right.
just Italy. But yeah, I like to go there. And again, I like to, I mean, if possible, right, going to like Africa, some of
Yeah.
the kind of like it's kind of that whole area is fascinating, all the history to all these things. And so, yeah, I would like to definitely, yeah, I like to, yeah, to go to Europe somewhere. Yeah, and of course also Asia too. I
Yeah.
need to go back visit my mom and want to go back to Hong Kong, and that whole area too is also like lots of good food and stuff like that. So yeah, yeah, I think I would kind of like to plan for those. Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, but until then, for now too, I'm like, okay, like to plan. I'm like, okay, pandemic is still on, so it's kind of like switch off and not think about it so much. But yeah, but for now, yeah, I think, yeah, for sure, yeah, I would like to, yeah, to
I'm,
to
I'm trying to
go
be
to those places.
hopeful that, by next fall, things are mostly back to normal. It'll be
Yeah,
interesting to see how long it takes to actually get vaccines rolled out. And you start to
yes,
realize that even 20 million doses really means 10 million people are vaccinated. And I don't think dev advocates
yeah,
are going to be at the head of the list, which is probably fine.
yeah,
So it'll be a
yeah.
little while, I think, before folks are going to be comfortable gathering in large numbers either. I
Mm.
think it's the other side effect of this whole thing. But,
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but
and talking about which, yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
I was going to say, I do think the rebound is going to be interesting because I think there's a lot of folks who are very much missing those sort of hallway track and just sort of that adjacent
Oh
possible that we get to have at events. And so I think it's going to be
yeah,
interesting to see what events look like once we're back, doing this,
yes,
and what kind of
that's
precautions are in
right.
place and how people react to it. But I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, yeah. I have a feeling that maybe some conference, or where I've also read about it, some conference are going to say that they will be having both an in person and like a online virtual. They will be like a hybrid format that they will be running. So that will be interesting too, because they are probably also hoping to capture their audience too from all over the world. So they
Mhm.
don't want to just limit to an in person. So they
Yeah,
want to accommodate those who cannot travel. And they also will be running like a virtual kind of track,
sure.
alongside with the main thing. Yeah. But like you said too, I also wondered too, I'm kind of feeling like as though, if we're now having the COVID number of cases rising so much again, and
Scary.
it's so scary. And now it seems like we're back to ground zero, or maybe even like ground minus one.
Yeah,
And we're like,
yeah,
what? We're like, I thought we were getting better, and now like kind of worse. And so I'm kind of not feeling too hopeful that it will be even 2021 for
yeah,
travel, but hopefully we will have fewer cases, or really we're going up, turning up onto the positive side. And then towards the end or second half of 2021, if we see a drop in number of cases, a dramatic drop,
hmm,
then hopefully then 2022 we will
right,
definitely be on the road again. I'm
right.
I'm hoping. Yeah, yeah. Because I'm sure too next year we're almost like a year now, like this
Yeah,
lockdown is it's kind of
yeah,
getting getting tired too. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of so edgy, right? Wanting to go and kind of meet people, like you
Yeah.
said, and just the idea of meeting with people and gathering, yeah, in person, yeah.
I
Nothing can take away the in person
no,
experience.
no, I miss that desperately. We've got a good friends of ours who
Yeah.
just had some minor surgery. Well, I shouldn't say minor. He had surgery, and I desperately want to go see them, but I know they are not taking visitors, which I completely understand. But I
Yeah.
miss seeing my friends. We just don't have those outlets, and so I'm hoping we can get past this soonish because I'm like
Yeah.
you. I miss seeing people. I miss hanging out with folks, and you know
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
even
yeah.
just the simple,
I
hey,
know.
let's grab a pizza and chat. It's like, yeah, that'd be really
Yeah,
nice.
that's right. Yeah, I love it. Now you reminded me that I just love it. After a conference, we're like, oh, let's go somewhere and get together and
Yep.
have drinks, have pizza, have something to munch on,
Yeah.
and just it's just so much fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. Yeah, I really, yeah, I miss that.
Oh,
So
100%. I mean, that's
yeah,
one of the best parts about this job is the fact that we have these opportunities and they're
yeah,
just random. Just what people do you bump into at what time in the right city? And yeah, yeah, it's great. Let's go get something to eat. Let's get a cup of coffee.
yeah,
I miss that so
yeah.
much, but
That's right.
oh well.
I know.
It'll end. It'll
Oh,
end. I feel
it,
confident that we'll get back to normal here or normal for some definition of normal anyway. But
yeah,
so you and I
that's
were
right.
chatting a bit about this before we started today, but how did you get into technology? How did you decide that playing with
Sure.
computers was a good way to make a living?
Oh, sure. Very good question. And I kind of go back a little bit in history. So I grew up with a brother who's 3 years older than me. He's a complete geek. A geek to a sense of if you ask him question, his answers, everything in his life is binary, 0 or 1, yes or no, right? So that's just how he is. But he's extremely talented in more of the hardware networking kind of thing. He's that kind of a geek kind of mentality. But then his social skills is like completely zero. Hate to say it, but almost completely zero. Just he just to this day he doesn't communicate well. That's the way he is. I
Sure.
feel sorry sometimes because I think that's why I can see too. Like no matter what you are very technical or whatever, we are human beings. I see that he is, he has his own community and all that. And in fact, he's kind of adopted the Gothic lifestyle too.
Oh,
So anyway, it's a little bit kind of strange, but he's actually as a good-hearted, kind-hearted person. But you can tell too, well, even with him being like that, because growing up, right, everybody's treated him like, oh, he's the smart guy, but he's kind of by himself and he does his own thing and he would come and bother his sisters like me and my little sister, the three of us. So you're like, okay, he's this odd dude, but as he gets older too, you see that he has his own community. So
sure.
it's a really community. So anyway, but back to your question. So about me, how to get in. And I remember he was so annoying. And that's a talk that I actually share with, whenever they ask me to do women in computing kind of talk, I would share that experience that when I was growing up, I vow, even though I was very good at math and all that, but I just vowed to myself, I said, I am not going to do computer or math or anything because of my brother, because he was so annoying. He would be saying that, well, if I had questions and I asked him, and he would be like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you because you're a girl, you won't understand." And so it was like so frustrating, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought I'm not going to get into this. So even when I came to the U.S. for university for college, and I thought, well, because I was active in sports, so I thought I would do sports physiology.
Oh
Thought
yeah.
thinking I'd go into more biology, but then it's funny too because I was good in math, and then I have an uncle. Actually, he unfortunately he passed away 2 weeks ago because of
I'm
COVID. But
sorry.
anyway, yeah, well, thank you. So he was the one that says, "Oh, you should get into computers." And at the time, I was a student here, kind of late '80s, right? So computers was starting to come up, and there Tim Lee Berners was starting his internet, so those things. So he was kind of foreseeing this thing. He has two PhDs to this guy. So anyway, he was saying, "Oh, you should get into computers and all that." And I said, "Well, should I or should I not?" And I was kind of remembering, this bad memory of my brother. I'm like, "Ugh, that's annoying. I don't want to get into something that has to do with him." But the thing is, it's funny, and amazing too is that I started taking computer class in my sophomore year
Okay.
because first year I was undeclared and sort of had a leaning on doing sports with physiology. But second year is sophomore year is like, okay, there's computer 101 that was becoming popular, intro to computer.
Sure.
So I said, oh, okay, let me take that. And by the way, too, my professor that one time, he's actually a distinguished engineer at IBM, which I found out after I joined. It's so funny. So anyway, but I took class from him. He was really good. And so I thought, well, maybe it's not so bad. And plus, too, amazingly, because then they started teaching you computers and I was doing Pascal. So, and I actually liked it because I remember you were just doing some simple stuff and you just doing a screen, asking for input and
Sure.
you change something. And that started to trigger some kind of interest in me. I was thinking, that is true. How do things work essentially?
Right.
So then I think and I really like it too. When I started coding, I realized, and at the time I was doing IBM terminals, old ways, kind of mini mainframe time, kind of like Wang computer, whatever. But anyway, prime computer. So those times. But I remember too, it did intrigue me that, it's just fascinating. You can manipulate binary digits
Right.
and make so many instructions. And I think that's what kind of like gave me this trigger. I thought, oh, that's actually not a bad thing. And I really start to take a good look into doing computer programming. And it's something that I actually enjoy doing. And it's
Yeah.
kind of strangely speaking. So that surprised me too. And I think that's how I got into it. And so like eventually, I got a math and computer science degree and I started working and all that. And that's how I got into this field. And it's funny too. I feel that it must be your life calling. And then it's just like one thing comes after the other. I didn't deliberately go out and thought about, switching career. I mean, I did, but
Right.
it's more like, well, it didn't seem to work. It didn't seem right. I'm still doing computer, so let me continue doing it. It's just more like a kind of fascination to see what it would be like if I would be doing something else
Sure.
rather than saying, well, okay, maybe I'll try something else. And so I think that's how I kind of stay on. And I really enjoy to doing advocacy because
Yeah.
it brings in this outreach aspect that not just a heads down kind of engineer, but you are actually doing more of the interaction with people.
Hmm.
So I really like it. So that's how kind of to give you a background, that's how I got into this field. Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's awesome. I 100% agree with loving what we do because we get to play with shiny new toys and then go
yeah,
teach other people how to use these shiny new toys and rinse
yeah,
repeat. It's like, yeah, that sounds a lot more interesting. I mean, I spent a lot of my career building enterprise web apps, and after a while, you're like, okay, so I'm gonna put a web page on a relational database. Cool. Yep,
yeah,
that sounds like a lot of fun. I
yeah,
remember when my college advisor told me that you'll eventually get tired of doing that. I'm like, what are you talking about? And yeah, I totally got it. About I don't know, maybe five
yeah,
years into my career, I'm like, ah, I see what Jim was trying to tell me.
yeah,
This gets kind of repetitious after a
yeah,
while, but
yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
well, that's
That's right. Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
So, do you have any? How do I want to phrase this? Do you have any books or papers or talks that you've seen that really sort of influenced you, whether that was around technology or around presenting or whatever? I mean, is there anything that really sort of stands out to you like, oh yeah, that was, I'm glad I read that or watched that changed me in some positive way?
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, since I'm on your show, gonna mention about your presentation.
Hang on now. We agreed over Twitter this morning that I wasn't going to quiz you about anything I've written.
I
So
know.
I'm leaving that on the table. But I
Yeah,
appreciate you sort
yeah,
of obliquely
yeah.
plugging that though.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But that's a very nicely written book. You and Neil and Matt, right? Yeah.
Matthew
So
McCullough. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So very, very nice. That's a very, very good book. Yeah,
Thank
on
you.
presentations and yeah, it's really nice in the sense that you broke it down. It's more like a, kind of a step by step, kind of bite size type of thing. So it's not like the whole chapter you need to read through to get the
Yep.
whole thing. It's more like okay, it's step by step.
Potato
So you can
chips.
have a little, yeah. So it's kind of nice. It kind of bite size. So that's a good book for presentation. And then I think for like say design book, right? The Gang of Four. I think that's also a classic, right? So that's a really really good book. I like that, and also well also too Java more like concurrency. It's always been distributed systems my area. I really like the Java concurrency book too. Brian Getz, yeah, that's also another classic thing on kind of these things. And Brian has kind of amazing way of explaining things. So kind of like comfortable. You go because I remember I first time went to his talk. That was he went to Chicago, came to Chicago for the No Fluff Just Stuff, right?
Yep.
So he did that. I'm like, whoa, that is amazing. You know, it's just kind of like opens my mind. It's like, wow, this is explained in such a nice way. And so, yeah, so I think, yeah, interestingly too, when you ask me about these questions, I think I remember myself somehow. It's not to say anything, but it's I know you're not asking me about this, but I think that gave me the courage, so to speak, to become an advocate because I remember I started going to conferences, right? And that time I was like, oh, wow, these people, there are actually conferences in computers too. Because prior to this, there weren't that many, and or maybe there might be some, but they tends to be more like corporate organizing. And then you need to have pay like $2,000 something, right? And your company would not send you there unless you are helping or something. But I remember that, and then I remember it's like, oh wow, that's really great. You know, you hear these people who write books, and kind of they come and present, and you talk to them, and it's like, wow, is that like the thing, you know? And it's kind of to me it was kind of a, you know, or maybe I wasn't working with people that were into going to do conferences, so
Sure.
that opened me up to, and I really enjoy. I found out, oh, I really like these conferences because I'm learning so much, and otherwise too, if you're just doing work at you know your daily work, you don't get exposure to some of
Right.
these other things. So yeah, so it's kind of great. I feel that yeah, having this kind of exposure to people. But anyway, back to your question, I kind of diverted. You're saying about the books and papers, so I kind of mentioned a couple of these, and yeah, I say those are the ones that I really kind of find to be so good, and I have them, you know, at my desk all the time. Some of these books, so yeah, so yeah, that's what yeah, I say yeah, I say
Well,
those are the ones.
and I think the power of that is you say, "Hey, wait, I can do this too," and then you go do it, and you're like, "Hey, that wasn't so bad. Like I can do this." And then people are like, "Hey, wait, if I can do that too," you know, it just sort of helps snowball, which I think is a huge win. I mean, I remember the way I kind of got into this whole speaking thing is I just kept pestering, you know, Jay Zimmerman of the No Fluff Show, and I attended a couple times, and I'm like, "Hey, you know, I just wrote a book on Ajax. You need some Ajax stuff?" And you know, I think I pestered him enough that he finally to get me to shut up. He's like, okay, fine, come to the city and you know, put up or shut up. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay. And you know, the rest is history, I guess, as they say.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I think I mentioned this last week when I was talking with Dahlia, but I had a friend of mine who was like my intern when he was in college, and we hired him on full time. And at one point, he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, once I realized like you wrote a book, I realized it really wasn't that big of a deal." I'm like, well, thanks, Joe. I think I don't know how to take that. I think that's not a compliment of me, but okay, that's fine. Oh well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That's right.
someday we'll be back in hotels. And is there a movie or a show that if you're flipping through the channels, you're like, oh, gotta watch this now. I'm in. You know what? It doesn't matter where in the movie it is, but you're like, I'm in for the duration. Is there anything that sort of resonates
Ah,
to you when you're on the road or just randomly flipping around the
on the
TV?
road. Yeah, yeah. Well, on the road, yeah, there can be many things, but I'd say for me, like Lord of the Rings is always the trilogy. It's always been always my favorite. Yeah, and I know all the characters and all these, so it's just fascinating. I just love it because it also the message too. It essentially is the core of it. Really, the message it brings out, right? Of being yeah, the fellowship, the yeah, the goodness that it comes out of it. So yeah, that's always been my favorite. Yeah, and yeah, of course too. I mean, the technology they used to were pretty amazing with the all the fight scenes or the war scenes and stuff like that. That was pretty good. So yeah, the effects there were good. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, there are other movies too. But I think I tend to kind of go, you know, for movies, other movies. I don't know. I kind of like sci-fi too. I
Yeah.
think science fiction stuff. I like it if they are kind of good, like put together. Oh, one thing, aliens, right? If it, I mean, they're kind of scary. I remember the first time watching the first one.
Oh God.
Oh, I remember it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I had my pillow or
Yeah, I
something.
watched
It's
most
like,
of that movie like this, like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. And so I like the science fiction stuff. I seem to like that a lot too. For a more fantasy type, I like that. And yeah, and then there's also actually, strangely speaking, too. There's this one. It's actually called War of the Worlds.
oh yeah.
Jeff Wayne, right? The musical. They are old, but again, that's actually my brother's favorite. Talking about which he
Really?
already knew it. That was
Huh.
in the 80s. Is it 80s when it came out? But anyway, Jeff Wayne's, and the music at the time I didn't quite like it because of my brother. But now too, as I get older, I somehow like like not intentionally, but saw it. And I said, oh, let me listen to it on YouTube. And recently they ran some kind of The Show Must Go On or something on YouTube. And I watched it. They did the live production, but Jeff Waynes was like conducting the music. So, and I do like War of the Worlds too. I mean, the story too, I'd say, being written right in the early 1900s, and it is quite advanced for that time. And some of the concepts too, I think still applies for for seeing what do you think it would be like in the future. Of course, that time they were talking about the Martians coming and kind of attacking all these things, but it's got to be quite progressive at that point in time when things did not have internet, did not have computers and all
Right.
that. But the story still stands. And then the music from Jeff Wayne's too, I really like it. It's just got a nice beat to it, and a couple of pieces I really like too. So yeah, but that's kind of more like a musical kind of
Sure.
movie. I don't know if that counts, but yeah, but I like that a lot too. So
I always wonder where folks get their ideas for some of these things when you look at creators and just how this happens, right? And I think a lot of what we do is more creative than maybe people give it credit for. I always felt that about code, is that it's much more artistic than scientific in many ways. And it's, I mean, it's not
yeah.
like a poem, but there is a lot of artistry to it. And I guess it's similar into like, how do we come up with a talk? But I'm always amazed when I see a plot or songs are the thing that I just can't get my head wrapped around. Like, I understand where the words come from conceptually, but the music, how does music just appear in your brain? I mean, I do not have that circuitry, and it's so amazing to me that folks can just sit down with a guitar, piano, and then out comes this amazing sound. Like, huh,
Yes.
anyway.
Yes. You brought up something too that's all also been very intriguing to me. And I think in some likelihood too, between computer, if I can have to say computer and music also are operating on these notes, right?
Yeah.
The on the scale, the notes and the different I used to play piano, so I'm familiar. And I also used to sing in the choir too. I think maybe that's why it helps me with presentation,
Oh,
because I
sure.
present perform. But anyway, so I'm finding it like computers. If we're dealing with zeros and ones, there are a certain set of rules, and so yeah, you can actually create anything out of it. The combination, right? It's just amazing. The effect, your multiple notes and all that stuff put together, or in a computer too, you can have different combination of instruction set. So there's kind of similarities, but you're right too, in some sense, to computer, our programming, our line of work, in some sense, it can be thought of as artist's
Mhm.
work, because we're kind of putting these together in the code. On the code level, you look at it, it can be done so nicely, so elegantly, that you have to do it long enough to appreciate that sense of
Right.
appreciation, right? Yeah. And it's funny too. I think I worked at some places that are kind of have folks that are more like matter of fact 9 to 5 job, and you try to talk about these computer things in a describing as artistic, they think you are nuts,
Right.
like, I'm just here to make a living. But the thing is, when we are so passionate about it, yeah, we do certainly appreciate the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you can liken it to like music, and music too, like you said, I also been fascinated because also my involvement with music. I was almost a music major too, by the way, in Hong Kong, but I decided, oh well, I want to venture out, kind of at the time as a teenager.
Sure.
But it is very true. For me, my genre of music too also kind of varies too. I like jazz. I was trained as a classical pianist, so I do classical music too, and all kinds. And I sang in choir, so I like choral music. And so anyway, but you brought up something very interesting, and I listen to music a lot too, still right to
Oh,
this
that's
day.
awesome.
So yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
So
fantastic. I mean, I have no musical talent at all. I mean, I can hit play on a song, and that's about the limit of it. I might be able to hum, but
oh,
musical
oh
talent is not evenly distributed. I've noticed that people who have that switch are, they play it all. They do guitar and piano and drums, and I'm like, Yeah, that's I can't
Yeah.
do that, but yeah, it's okay. It's okay. It's
Well,
what makes us all interesting, right?
yeah, but you know what? You never know. You actually have that talent. It's just that maybe you're thinking you don't, and so then you don't even like give it a try. But there have been experiments in which people think they don't, but actually they
Sure.
get some training. They can, you never know. You have a hidden talent in you, just not tapped. So it needs to be tapped into. So yeah,
Well, winter is
yeah.
coming, so maybe that's what I'll do
Oh,
to keep my mind occupied when the days. The other night I came downstairs and I looked around. I'm like, God, it is so dark already. It was like 4:30, 4:45. I'm like, this time of year is so depressing that way for me at least. It's
yeah.
so dark so early, and
You're
you have
right.
all this time.
Yeah.
Zeroth world
Um,
problem, as they say. Well,
I know.
let me throw a few lightning round questions at you. We're almost out of time. It's amazing
Oh,
how
sure.
fast this always goes. So,
Yeah.
coffee, espresso, or tea?
Tea,
Okay. All right. Pie or cake?
pie.
Oh, all right. Now, what is your favorite kind of pie?
Oh, I'd say I like apple pie. I just like the crust. That's why when you say pie and cake, I just go for pie. So yeah, I
Yeah,
love the
I like
crust.
those crumbles where they like the apple
Yeah,
crisp, the crisp part. Just give me the crisp. I don't even need the
yeah,
apple part.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can give me any pie, I'll eat the crust. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice. I think they sell just the crust. I'm not sure. My wife made a was it a French silk pie for Thanksgiving?
Oh,
Not a pumpkin pie. I'm not sure how that happened.
wow.
Apparently,
Oh,
our
that's
child does
oh,
not
yeah.
like pumpkin pie. I'm so
Oh.
confused about my son some days,
Mm.
but he's young. We have time to work on that. But
Yeah.
now you and I both live in the Midwest where we have neither of these things. But oceans or mountains, which do you prefer?
Wow. That's a tough one because
Right?
I like both. Um, I think I like ocean. I would pick ocean. Yeah,
Nice,
I just
nice.
like
And
this. Yeah,
to be fair, I guess our big lakes are close to that, right?
yes,
We're
that,
both near enough to
right.
the Great Lakes there that we
Yeah,
get to experience that from time to time. But
yep, that's right.
now, we have talked about food. I can't leave food behind. But food truck or Michelin stars?
Food trucks.
Okay, that's been a very popular answer, by the way. I'm very
Yeah,
intrigued by that. So I think I
yeah.
know what you're going to say here. But Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings. Yes, yes. It's always my favorite.
Some of these are easy, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So if you got to jot something down to remember it later, do you use an app on your phone or do you have a piece of paper, notebook? What's your preference?
Oh, I think I used to be more notes. I think now I'm more app now, or at least I do it like yeah on my phone. So yeah.
How about for reading, paper book or ebook?
Uh, I think ebook now.
Okay.
So yeah.
My son told me the
So,
other day that if it's not a physical book, it's not a real book, and he only wants to read real books because
oh,
I told him he should read some series that I have on one of the tablet
on your
devices, and
mhm.
he's like, nah,
No,
really?
still want the
Okay,
real book. Yeah,
it's fine, it's fine.
yeah.
Are you a night owl or a morning lark or somewhere in between?
Oh, I'm night owl for
Okay.
sure. Whatever I do, I can never. I would say tell myself I go to bed by 12, but I end up always one, two. That's typical. I don't know what it is. I have something. I have do this and all that, and by the time you brush your teeth too,
Like,
it's
oh,
like
it's pretty
two.
late.
I know.
I,
Yeah, but I
you know,
still get up early.
I don't know what it is about this industry. We don't seem to have a lot of morning people.
Yeah,
We all tend to be made more on the later side. I mean, not everybody is the
not
go to bed at
everybody.
4 in the morning, but I don't see too many people who are up at the crack of dawn.
You're right.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
so true. So true. I remember even when I first started working at Sybase at the time I was at Sybase, I remember somebody said, oh, we'll have a meeting at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And people were like, what? You're kidding me? No, I don't even get up until 12 noon, something. It was so funny. I remember. Yeah, it's so funny.
Time zones, love it.
Yeah,
But
that's right.
cats or dogs?
Cats.
Ah, yes, I'm a cat
I
person
love
as well. I'm actually
your cat.
surprised neither of my cats have bothered me today. Usually when I'm on a Zoom call, they're both like, "I want to be part of your presentation." Last week
Oh,
Han decided he wanted to lay on the keyboard while I was chatting with Dahlia. So
oh,
cats, I
wow.
tell you. But I
I
love our
know.
cats most of the time.
Yeah.
How about tabs versus spaces? Where you come down on that age-old debate?
Oh, that's right. I think spaces.
Okay.
I tend to be more spaces. That's right. Yeah.
And I don't. This might even be more controversial, but Emacs or Vim?
Ah, Emacs.
That is the correct
Yes,
answer, by the
I
way.
still have. Yeah, I have Emacs on my MacBook right now.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh my gosh. Well,
Yep.
I have had so much fun. I hope you did as well. Where could
I
people see more of you, talk to you more? What do you got going on? I know we got your user group coming up. So what's new and exciting?
Sure. Chicago Jug, we have like microprofile workshop, and it's actually more with the microprofile workshop, working group leading a workshop this the second Wednesday. So this Wednesday morning, if you're interested, then we have lightning talks. Yes, lightning talks, please, folks. If you're interested in speaking, 5 minutes, that's all is needed. Yeah, so please sign up and speak. I think we already got a few, but they are still shy of coming forward. So please, anybody who wants to, just share with anything. We're not judging. We will support you, whatever you want to talk about. So that's lightning talks, and then also too, I do a weekly Twitch on and here through IBM Developer on mostly reactive stuff right now. So I'm
Nice.
on reactive operators. So on Wednesday, so that's my time,
Awesome.
Central Time, about 1 p.m., 12:30, 1 p.m. So
Nice.
yeah, so
Awesome.
those are one. And follow me on Twitter. So yeah, yeah. So
Well, fantastic. Well, Mary, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. It's delightful to
thank
catch
you,
up with
Nate.
you, and I'm very hopeful that 2021 will be back in more or less
Yes.
normal times, and I'll get to see you in, places that aren't our, proverbial dens. But
Yeah,
we'll see what
that's right.
happens.
And of
So
course, yeah, if I want to come, it's only 6 hours driving, so
I
that's
know,
not too
and as you were
bad.
talking, your daughter's actually about 2 hours north of me, so you can just swing in,
Yeah,
grab a cup of coffee or dinner or whatever. I mean,
exactly.
I'm right
Yeah,
off the
that's
freeway that you
right.
have to use to get to Duluth. So
Exactly. We
and
just wear a mask.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And Duluth is a
It's
lovely
okay.
city. I love Duluth. Just don't go there in the winter would be my recommendation.
Exactly. The
So,
snow.
and
Exactly.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
steep hills. I had
Yeah.
students that lived in Duluth when I was teaching them, and they said there would be times where they just have to park their car at the bottom of the hill and walk up to their house because
Oh,
there's no way their car could get up because of the
without-
ice. So,
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
not a fan.
There's
Not a
no.
fan. So,
Yeah. There's snow. It's definitely.
no,
Yeah. I
no.
know. Yeah. Phenomenal amount of snow.
There
So
can
yep.
be. There can be. Yes,
That's
that
right.
is the downside of living where we live. But
Yeah.
well,
Yep.
again, thank you, Mary. Appreciate your time. So we're
Thank
off
you.
next week, but the week after we'll have, let's see, let's double check my calendar to make sure I'm not wrong. Oh, Raju Gandhi will be joining us, my good
Oh,
friend
Raju, I
Raju.
like him. Yes.
Isn't he great?
Cool.
I love him. So I'm very excited. I
Wonderful.
haven't had a chance to hang out with him much this year, so I'm very excited to have him on the show. But anyway, again, Mary, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
Nate. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Really enjoyed this. Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you. You
Yeah.
too.
Thank you. Okay.